Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have this adorable Christmas card to share with you as I'm starting to go through my list and check off all these cards I need to make. So it's very simple on the front, but on the inside there is this entire scene of these two sweet little sheep writing their letters to Santa. There's a fair bit going on here, so let's get started. First up, we're using the Baaah Humbug stamp set and my new stamp set, Love Letters, that I got last week from Hobby Hoppers. I'm going to just be using the letters, the envelopes, the little ink bottle, and the little calligraphy pen. I'm also mostly just using the sheep and a few other little accessories from the other set. From this set, I'm using the desk chair to pair with my desk dies. There were quite a few images for this one to set this little scene. I do like my full-on little scenes where every time you look at it you kind of notice something different, and I wanted this to be a little office. So obviously I needed the chair and I wanted some stationery, and to fill in that wall at the back, because I find that wall can be quite bare in these cards with the desk, I wanted to just put a little shelf with some things that you might find in an office or a study on top of there. So here I am stamping all of these cute images out. I really love these little ink splatters in this stamp set, so I decided to use a few of them to stamp onto the letters. This letter is actually going to be at the front of the card as it was too big for the desk, and I stamped some on the envelope as well. I just thought if these two sheep are like little children, then they probably got a bit of ink everywhere as they were doing this. So here I am starting off my colouring, and as always I'm using a mix of Copic markers and my regular alcohol markers. And speaking of Copic markers, the other day on Instagram I asked what people's thoughts were on Copic refills, because it's not something I have any experience with at all yet. But my skin tone set, which is the very first Copic set I ever bought, they're all slowly dropping one by one. I have replaced one already, but I've got at least 3 that are really starting to dry out and are in definite need of either replacing or refilling. So I asked on Instagram what people's thoughts were on it, and a majority, if not everybody, who replied to me said that refills are the way to go. Which is good, because that was the direction I was leaning in anyway, but I just thought a lot of people have a lot more experience than I do with these things, so I thought it was best to ask the experts. And I was really relieved to hear that it is super easy to do as well. What I didn't realise was that there is actually some places here, and I can pop that link either below or in my blog post that goes along with this, where you can send your Copics in to get refilled if you don't want to do it yourself, and that is actually very affordable. But I think with the amount that I use them, that I will probably buy the refills for myself, and I've been looking into them, and I'm really grateful that someone on Instagram actually sent me a photo of their craft catalogue, and it showed how many refills you could get depending on your Copics that you got. I use Copic sketch markers. I love the feel of them in my hand, and I think you can get something like 7 refills per refill bottle, so that's really exciting. So now I just have to find the right colours and make it work within my budget. But I would love to know in the comments what your experiences are with refilling Copics. Is it something that you do? Is it something that you've never thought of, or just haven't had the info on and would like to do it? If you're interested, when I do eventually get my hands on those refills, I might do a video on me learning to do it, and then hopefully me mastering it eventually and not making a mess. But I guess it's just something that I wanted to bring up, because everyone's markers run out of ink eventually, and this is the first time that I'm experiencing like a mass run out of ink in my poor markers. And obviously it's also much better for the environment to be doing refills rather than throwing out pen after pen, so that really fits in with everything I stand for, so that's very exciting. So as you can see, I am colouring in all these images, and I'm going for a very Christmassy feel with lots of red and green. I think this might be the first time I've used the desk chair with the desk. I can't remember if I've used it before. I know that I have used the desk a lot. I've used it as a kitchen a couple of times, and I've used it as a desk before in the past, but maybe not with the chair. So I'm really excited when making this card to see how it turns out in the end. I just love these little sheep so much. I'm so happy that I thought of something to use for these little sheep. I just could not make up my mind on what to do with them, and then this idea popped into my head to have them as little kids writing letters to Santa. I could have done this with my mice as well. You know how much I love my mice. They are my favourite. And I probably will at some point, to be honest, because I just want to use them in every scene I can possibly think of. But I just thought that the sheep would look really cute sitting in the desk chair, because it's a nice big character. To have his little head and ears pop over the top is just really, really cute. So here I am just adding all of my white details. I'm going in with a super juicy size 1 today, as my images are nice and big. I have had some people ask recently if I can show how I do my white highlights. I actually already have a whole video dedicated to that, so I might link that below if you're interested in seeing it. I'm just finishing off the other little accessories that I'm having in my little office, and as you can see here, I've only coloured in the ears on this other little sheep, and that's because he's going to be blocked off by the chair. You're not going to see him, you're only going to see the ears sticking out. Okay, so now I am moving on to the flooring of this card. I really love making these little scenes, but sometimes I get a little bit lost as to what to do with the floor. I've got heaps of pattern paper to do the background, like wallpaper at the top, but sometimes the floor I just think, do I just use my white wood grain cardstock? Do I try to colour that? But today I'm going in with some tea dye Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm going to use some walnut stain with a timber stencil. These colours probably didn't match each other perfectly. I do feel like the wood grain is a little bit dark against it, but you're not going to see a lot of it, and it's really just there to fill in the space so that the whole bottom of this card isn't white. I do leave a little white space to stamp my sentiment and to write my message for Christmas, but I just feel like there has to be some kind of flooring to round off the scene. And speaking of sentiments, I'm going to stick mine on now. So I've got this one that says, "May you get everything you wish for." And I love using this one. I think I've used this one a couple of times. I just feel like it's a really sweet sentiment, especially like with these little kids writing their little wish list to Santa. It just really fit the theme of this card. I'm using a whole bunch of nitpicky paper. I think that's what this paper pad is called. This is my oldest Lawn Fawn paper pad that I have. And I'm using some plain green for the top and the really cute patterned paper for my rug on the floor. I figured it goes really well being green and red. It ties in the scene nicely. And as you can see, I have just demonstrated why I love my tape runner so much. It is semi-permanent until it dries, so I have a chance to take off anything that I make a mistake with and correct it before it sets and becomes more permanent. So there we go. There is my wallpaper, my rug, and my floor. Moving on to the desk, I've just used some brown cardstock and a lighter shade of brown cardstock for my drawers. Here I am adhering that sheep to the desk chair. I just love how this turned out. It was very, very cute. So I'm going to turn that around and place it the other way. It's much easier to line up this way. And I'm just blocking out his little face and his arms as best I can. But there are just 2 little dots where his arms are, so I'm using my white Jelly Roll pen just to go over them and hide them. And now he looks like he's facing the other way. I then glue on my desk, gluing the back first. I find this is the easiest way to do it. Gluing the back and lining it up where I want against my wallpaper, pushing that down and letting it just have a minute to dry. Then for the front of the desk, I then put my glue down and fold it because this is the trick that I think I saw when I was watching the tutorials for this one. And this just, it never wants to work for me. I think because I'm using PVA glue and not a super sticky, maybe tape adhesive. But at least it gave me the spot to line it up, so I could just hold it until it dried. At this point, I realized I needed just a few extra details, and I'm not going to show how I colored these in because it'll just take up too much time. So what I'm using here is from Happy Hugs, the little thought bubble, and I'm putting a toy train in there. And from my You're Just My Type stamp set, I'm using that little square of paper, and I'm putting a teddy bear on there with some little ink splatters again, of course, because that fit much better on my desk than that big letter that I have already colored in did. And as you can see, that big letter is now going to be the main piece on the front of this card. When I cut the paper for my wallpaper, I had this strip left over and it was the perfect size to put on the front of this card. I then just cut a little piece of red cardstock with my little scallop circle, and then I'm sticking on my letter to that. It's very simple, but I feel like it's just enough to let you know what kind of card it is, and it's just a little sneak peek as to what is going to be happening on the inside. I'm now gluing all the little pieces for my shelf. If you don't recognize where that little shelf die is from, it's one of the pieces to the fireplace in the fireplace die set. I believe it's either the mantle or the little step at the bottom of the fireplace, but I find it is the perfect length to have a shelf on top of this desk, whether you're using it for a study or for a kitchen. I've used it in the past to have all my little baking spices and things up on the shelf where my little mice were cooking. It's a really simple die, but I've had a few uses for it already. Here I am sticking in some balls of wool. I know it might be a little bit of a strange thing to have in a study. Maybe it's a craft room. And with them being little sheep, I figured the wool just worked really well. Now it's time to get setting the scene. This is my favorite part of any card, is when I have all my pieces ready and then it's just a matter of sticking everything down and watching the scene come together before my eyes. So I first started with this little lamp, and as I'm pushing it down, I then realized I might actually want to peel it up just a little bit so I can slip in my shelf behind it, as that telescope just makes things go much higher up the card than I first thought. But that's okay. Having the lamp in front of it, I guess, gives it just a really little bit of dimension and just helps set the scene even more. So I stick down my shelf and then I move on to the other accessories. With this little sheep, I've just used my X-Acto knife and just cut around its little arms just a little bit so that they pop up and I can slide my letter underneath its hands. I then add glue where I need it to so that it sticks onto my sheep nicely, and then put that aside to dry. So here I am decorating the top of the desk, and this piece of paper fits much better than the other one did. So there is the little drawing that the sheep has done for his wish list. I've got my little ink pot, the little pen, and even though these are being placed flat down on my table, they still add so much dimension to this scene. I love making cards like this where you can look at it from every angle and see that there is something to look at. So from on top we get to see the desk. You might not see it front on as much as you do with the sheep and the things that are on the wall, but then all you have to do is slightly change your angle and you get to see a whole other side to this scene. It is now time to glue my little sheep on in his chair, and oh my gosh, he's so cute. I just love that so much. Here I was trying to work out a way to adhere the little thought bubble near the sheep, but to also have it floating. So I used just a little bit of acetate and I stuck that behind the sheep's head and on the back of that little thought bubble. But unfortunately, what I didn't realize at this time was that when I closed it, it actually stuck out of the card. So I do rearrange that in just a minute. What I'm doing over here with the chair is something that I've not had a problem with before, because I don't think, like I said earlier, that I've used this chair with the desk before. But I noticed my chair was just catching as I folded the card and my little wheel was bending. So I also popped a little bit of acetate behind all three wheels just to support it so that it wouldn't get stuck and wouldn't bend. And here I am fixing up that thought bubble. And there we go, everything finally fits. And so here is the complete card. Here it is when it's closed, and then when you open up, there is this adorable scene on the inside. I just love how this card turned out. I'm really happy with it. I love making little scenes like this. If you enjoyed this tutorial, then please give this video a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you to stick around and see what else I make leading up to Christmas, and of course after that. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.